And welcome back, everyone. We have the Patriot Pod has a very special and another. I say that every time. All of our episodes are special, but this one I'm very passionate about because technically, Kyle and Tashina are our business partners. And outside of this podcast, we have a lot going on. And this couple right here are very near and dear to our hearts because of what they're doing and how they're helping the veteran community, which is a big reason, I would say, if not the number one reason why we wanted to have them as our guests today on the podcast. So, really excited to talk to these two. They have a wealth of knowledge and they're going to share everything that they can with you in the time limit that we have today.
I'd like to start with, in the military, especially when you're in there for that long, you go to boot camp, they break you down, they build you up in the military's image, and I don't blame them for that. We gotta fight war and spread freedom, right? So that takes a certain amount of buy-in where the individualism that typically is celebrated, I think, rightfully so. Diversity and inclusion is a good thing. That's when complex problems are being solved, you need diversity and inclusion. But when you need to, fight for democracy, right? You need less individualism and more cohesive units where you're able to perform quickly, make decisions quickly, and prioritize and execute with vigor. Okay, so when it's happening, you know what's happening, but you just don't. You don't really know how much you're conditioned until you get out of boot camp and you're standing at attention naturally in line at a grocery store. Okay, and my wife found that pretty interesting as I'm standing more comfortably at attention and taking small, mechanized formation type steps, and that's more comfortable for me. It's crazy, So realizing that, and then you get through, about 9 years in the military, and every branch has specializations within their branch, right? And being a submariner takes you're special and unique, and especially dealing with nuclear power, 1,000 feet underwater, you have to be special and unique. And that's what they tell you, right? To feel good about the crap you're doing. But at the end of the day, you realize that you have some conditioned behaviors. Some are good, some are bad, and even sometimes the same behavior can be good and bad at different times in the day. And you try to do the best you can. And even employers, they will use that to their advantage, right? They like to hire military people because we get stuff done with vigor. Okay. But at a certain point, you can burn out, especially when you don't have the kind of brotherhood, and brotherhood is universal, right? You can have sisters that are brothers, right? I serve with some sharpest females in the entire world. People I respect deeply, right? So they're still considered my brothers, right? Figuratively. And you don't have that in the civilian world. And so things can break down when you don't have that foundation to rest in, really. Mm-hmm. And so I would burn hot, burn bright, and burn out in the jobs I had. I had a lot of different jobs. I was, by all external observation, successful. I would come in and kick ass and take names and do well. But then I'd be so frustrated we didn't have that everyone was on the same page. Everyone wasn't rowing the boat the same direction. That cohesiveness of the military unit and the military lifestyle was very hard for me. I didn't understand why people didn't care. Why don't people care like me? Why don't you see the goal and want that to happen? Don't you? To me, it's innate or very obvious that kind of success is where you should be driving towards. And then, call it maturity, call it experience, call it whatever. The conditioning, I started realizing the conditioning I had from the military, sometimes and most times wasn't serving me. It was adding a lot of opportunity for conflict. And the way the military taught me to handle conflict was with brute force, whether it be intellectual brute force, physical presence, and domineering brute force, right? You could call it influence, you can call it manipulation, call it fear mongering, right? But I would use anything I could to get the job done because that's how the military taught me to be. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. So, and I was getting some education too. I was getting a master's degree in strategic leadership, and I was learning that maybe I wasn't as good as I thought I was. Maybe the people that I thought I was leading, I was actually alienating, and that was really hard for me. So, kind of had a come to Jesus moment and had a breakdown mentally, right? And she and I were having challenges at that time in our marriage, and so it kind of these things had to be explored. right? And so my mental health was a primary driver to what I thought was success, but also failure. Like, because it's almost like a zero-sum game. I was succeeding in workplaces, but failing at home as a husband and a father, right? And those are the fundamental and foundational things that you need to have better so that the work can be better. But in the military, all that matters is work, right? That's my identity. That's who I am. That's what everyone judges me by. That's my rank. That's my title. That's my file, right? And so that was challenging. But from there, we started exploring. Well, my mental health rating was a 30. And I started looking, and I started looking at the criteria. Like, what does the book say? Being a nuke taught me what does the book say? And I went to the book and realized, oh my gosh, there's a ton of symptoms here that I didn't really have any awareness for. And I talked to Sheena, and I was like, hey, should we do this? Should I go for it? Because again, I was afraid too. I don't want to lose what I got. Human beings are so conditioned to hold on tightly what we have to not lose it. We are risk averse generally as human beings than we are as growth mindset oriented, right? Or to live life and live it abundantly. It's a biblical principle, but what does that mean? How can you live life abundantly if you're so risk intolerant? But it came down to is like we were looking at our relationship, we're looking at my behaviors and stuff, and I said, at least try, no regrets, right? Funny from one of the movies, like, no regrets written across your chest. And we went for it. And the hardest part was being authentic and really admitting things to myself, identifying how these things were hurting my family, hurting our life, and then being able to effectively communicate it, right? But as soon as I got over the pride, really, I started having kind of a disassociative look at it as fighting for myself like I fought for other people, right? Or what would I tell my brother? Or what would I tell my buddy that would come to me? Because guys would come down to me in Engine Room Forward on the submarine all the time for advice, right? And I'm really good at giving advice, not so good at taking it myself, right? Another classic problem of type A's, right? So I had to take my own advice, and that was freaking hard. But at the end of it, I got an accurate rating, and that changed our life. As soon as I realized that, wait a minute, it took me having to know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I had to know people. People had to point me to the CFRs. People had to tell me about the law changing, because the law changed. I got my degree at the end of, or technically graduated in 2018. 2017 is when the law changed. So I was like one of the first, as the first that I knew that it was even possible to do this, to use civilian doctors and not have to use VA doctors or VA contracted doctors for disability compensation and pension exams. And I was like, this should be being sung on the rooftop, right? And I do have a superhero complex. People that know, if there's any submariners out there listening, my penance from King Neptune was being too pure a soul to sail the seven seas, right? I was that guy. I was voted the FCPOA president, which stands for First Class Petty Officer Association president. And what that means is I was like the advocate for the junior enlisted to the senior enlisted, right? I was the union president, right? I was the bulldog to fight for the little guy. That's just me. And so when I realized that, I was like, I would be derelict in duty or some burden of responsibility that I put on myself that to let people know, to spread the word, right? And I was working at a government contracted facility for nuclear waste, and it's a pretty cush government job, but we're building this plant to basically make nuclear waste into black glass obsidian to control it, which is a great mission, right? It was great. It's really important to do for the environment, handling legacy waste from World War II. But I had this pull, like, I can't enjoy this without sharing it. How can I share this? And I know, especially after my degree, I became acutely aware of my limitations. I became more self-aware what I was good at. And I was like, Sheena, I think we need to do this. What do you think? Right. And she goes, I don't know, it sounds like good. He's like, but I would need you to do this. And what would you think about this? And I had to bring, I couldn't, like most things, you can't, what do they say? Go fast, go alone, go far, go together. Right. So Sheena and I decided, like, we are going to pretty much 6 months off a brand new move. The military taught us to move all over the place. So 6 months into our move, we're like, okay, we look at each other, and it's almost like deciding to have a baby. Like, we're going to do this. We're going to add strife and challenge into our life and step into this entrepreneurial world so that we can help more people, because they at least deserve to know. Even if it doesn't work, the 10 people that we maybe help in that time is worth it. And it turns out way more than that. But that's kind of how we got here. And we started at the beginning. Pretty much, we started in fall of 2019, and then sure enough, March 2020, COVID happens, and we think, oh crap, we're going to fail because no one has any money to help us help themselves. But then veterans realized that with the economy shutting down and all the telework stuff, that there was actually time to start challenging my disability rating to see if there's monies I should be receiving in compensation to have a better platform to weather a storm like this. And I was really surprised that it actually helped us launch pretty quickly. And we were already teleworking before teleworking was cool. So we already had tools and practice in place. There was like, we're leveraging some efficiencies here that really helped us be effective. And we're very thankful for, the clients decided to take a chance on us. When we first starting, we didn't have anything but my own testimony, right? And sure enough, I mean, by month 3, we had more than 20 clients, and then the rest is history.
Were you always on the track of entrepreneurialism, or like how did that start? I'd like to know kind of the consequences around what really propelled you. And I know you kind of touched on it. You said everybody needs to know this, which is awesome. And I'm glad that you took up that mantle and ran with it. But for you and Tashina, because y'all are a team, you're a family with 5 kids, and everything is predicated on not just one person's success, but everyone as a family's success. Where did that entrepreneurialism come from? How did that happen?
I think he was born with it, honestly.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I've heard some stories, and he's just like a natural born salesperson too. He could like, what is the thing, like sell snow to
Eskimo.
An Eskimo? Yeah, like he could totally do that. I think he came out that way, but you tell your story, Kai.
Well, but do that. I mean, we've for our entire life, we've always wanted to get into real estate. We've always wanted to. I mean, my dream job would be a real estate agent, to be honest. If I could do it all over again, I would have gotten into real estate right out of college, because I look at houses for fun. I would have loved to do that. I love the idea of solving problems with people, and especially as emotional as real estate is, that's something we've always thought about. We've thought so much about what is it? It takes money, right? If we just had the money, we would do something like that. And so we've been mulling around entrepreneurial spirit and ideas for years, because, I mean, to be honest, I was a wage slave, right? And in the military, there's at least there's the sweet manna from the gods, knowing that you're fighting for your country, right? That makes the sacrifice worth it. No one joins the military for the money, right? There's something else there, and from Sheena and I being from different parts of the country, but still in the same kind of echo chambers. I'm being in the Pacific Northwest in Idaho at the time. It's blue collar, hardworking, right? And then Sheena being from the South, from Louisiana, people know there's a lot of patriotism in the South. So there's patriotism everywhere, to be honest. But I mean, we were, even though diametrically opposed geographically, from a value perspective, we were raised the same values. And part of that is valuing freedom. And entrepreneurialism is the fastest way to freedom, right? And so, while maybe I was born with certain, and I don't even say that, maybe some sales chops, yes. It's not really sales chops, just I really enjoy solving problems. And that's what sales is. I mean, if you're selling someone something, you're selling a solution. And of course, if you believe that, and know why this is solving your problems, it's really servant leadership. And that's natural. I would anything say I'm a natural servant leader. So sales is a really natural progression of servant leadership. And so, but as far as entrepreneurial spirit goes, to be honest, have you guys ever heard of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Absolutely. Robert Kiyosaki.
So there you go. Right. So reading that book, really highlighted for me. So I had my dad, in this case, would be the poor dad, not from a fiscal perspective, but from my dad raised me with certain values and principles. Very disciplined based, very militaristic from his high school football days of winning championships. And then I had a rich dad, Chuck Schleckaway. And so Nick Schleckaway was his son and my friend in football. He was the guy that was better than me, and I wanted to be as good as him. And so I associated myself with him, and sitting around his table and listening to how his dad spoke, because he was an entrepreneur. He had real estate. He had apartments down at Boise State University he would rent out. and manage. He had a coffee shop, Moxie Java, as well as managing hair masters, right? So he had multiple business entities, right? And I saw and heard the way he spoke. I heard and saw the way he behaved. And I noticed there's a difference there. So I was attracted to that entrepreneurial spirit by the time that I spent through osmosis with the Schleckaway family. And so the Schleckaway family is my rich dad in this scenario. And so, in seeing what Nick did, he, after playing at Boise State University, started a real estate brokerage, the fastest growing and best real estate brokerage in Idaho, Amherst Madison. If you are looking at real estate investing in Idaho, look up Nick Schleckaway. He has his own brand. So he's a stud, right? So I've always kind of been looking at that at a distance. I'm in the military and he's out there living the American dream, right? And so having him as a confidant and someone to talk to and a backstop, like, okay, am I way off base here? Like, well, no, look at this. Look into Jim Rohn, right? Like, look into these things and start thinking different, and that was really the catalyst to help see the military behaviors and the way the military thought processes are helpful and potentially hurtful in entrepreneurial spirit, right? And it's kind of like a seed that was planted. And then after, to be honest, it was after the resource that came in after an accurate VA disability rating, which was really the seed money, pun intended here, the seed money to allow us to take the associated risks to become entrepreneurs, because we had a fail-safe, we had a safety net, right? We had resource that was there, tax-free. And subsequently, we've had multiple folks that have been a benefactor of our services that have started their own businesses. I know of 10 personal entrepreneurs that have either quit the job that they hated and started going, what I say, give their God-given gifts and talents freely because they don't have to worry about the bare minimum, and that's really exciting because I can share in that feeling with them because we did it for ourselves first. But it has given us freedom. It's given us even more ability to grow mentally, physically, even. And really just, it's living life more abundantly.
That's huge. And I love to hear that. That's like why we're here, why we're doing what we're doing. And you touched on one of the key aspects of really what I wanted to dig down into the weeds on is there is a financial aspect to being accurately rated. Veterans and soldiers getting accurately rated by the VA and receiving those that compensation that they deserve for the service that they provided to their country, and that opens up a lot of doors, much like you were pointing to. But I actually want to ask Tashina this question. I'd like to see a specific example. Can you share with the audience, because our constraints with these episodes is, we want to give the most meat and potatoes that we can. I'd like to ask, in your personal opinion or in your professional opinion, really, what is one of the more satisfying outcomes of helping a veteran get their accurate rating with the VA, and how that helped them to perhaps launch their career or use those resources to kind of gear towards the real estate market? And if you could give us a little bit of a personal kind of overview of one of your favorite examples, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I knew that this question was going to come, because I would have asked for specific permission from this vet to name drop a little bit, because he was actually a friend from, when I was 17 years old. I was working at a restaurant and he was the busboy, and we just became friends, and he ended up serving in the military. Once he was done serving in the military, he became a police officer. And between both of those, he was exposed to quite a bit of mental health triggers, if you will. And he was having a really hard time with that. And this was very early on when Kyle and I had first started Atlas. And we reached out to him, because that's what we did in those early days, is we just called up everybody that we knew of, like, hey, at least let me talk to you about this. Let me give you some information to help yourself, right? But thankfully, this friend, he was very interested in the things that we were saying and realized that he was in a place where he needed help. And so it was hard for the two of us to work together because we had known each other so well. but he was willing to work with Kyle. And so Kyle worked with him. He got him through our entire process. And it was a little, triggering for him. But at the very end, he was successful and reaching 100%. And so what that allowed him to do was to step away from the things that were triggering him every day, the things that he was seeing as a police officer. He was able to remove himself from that and really figure out, okay, what do I want? How can I take care of my family? What can I do to be a better husband and father and member of society? And he actually started his own real estate business. He didn't start the business right away.
Love it.
It was a brokerage, or he worked for a brokerage. And then within, gosh, Kyle, 1 to 2 years, possibly?
Yeah.
About
1 to 2 years, him and his buddy started his own brokerage, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's doing amazing. He is, one of the top people in his market. He's just on top of it. He loves it. I see him on social media now, and all of the pictures, he just looks so happy, and he's spending so much time with his kids, and they flip houses, and he's teaching his children how to do that. And just knowing him for so long, knowing some of the things that he went through, how hard his life had gotten for him, and to see him now on the other side of that because he chose to work with us, because he let us help him. It's my favorite story, and I am so proud of him and that outcome.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't want to just go by the wayside is the fact that situation happened because you and Kyle chose to start Atlas Benefits Consulting 4 years ago, and you have helped innumerable people up until this day and still do. I see the momentum that you and Kyle are generating in Atlas, and it's absolutely inspiring. And to go on from there, there's a lot of intangibles to what you are accomplishing with Atlas, and there's a lot of tangibles to see people get their accurate ratings. That's awesome. That's a tangible. But there's also a lot of intangibles. So let's talk about Atlas itself, right? What are some of the less known things that our audience could pick up on and say, oh, I didn't know that? Or, oh, this is a great benefit of having a VA claim, because there is a misconception out there of a lot of things happening with VA claims and soldiers not going for or submitting their VA claim because they don't think it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of soldiers out there that just have not done it before because they don't know the process. They may not know that you and Kyle are out there. They may not have ever heard of Atlas Benefits Consulting. So can you share with us some of those lesser known things? Like everybody knows you get rated by the VA and you get paid. Great. I want everyone to understand how beneficial and impactful that is. But let's also highlight for some folks in our audience, what are those lesser known resources that come along with being accurate?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the most important thing, I think, is that once the VA has service connected something, you for life have that issue in your healthcare. So for example, if you have bad knees, 50, 55, you need a knee replacement, the VA's got that. They're going to cover that. So whatever is service connected, the VA will always take care of your health concerns with that. Once you reach a certain level, then you qualify for comprehensive healthcare. Once you're at 100% total and permanent, your family will qualify for healthcare if you don't already have TRICARE. So things like that. Healthcare is a huge, huge component of getting that accurate rating. On the other side of that is every state has different benefits based off ratings. Certain states have reduced property taxes. Some states don't have property taxes at all. Some states have education benefits for the veteran. Some states have education benefits for the veteran and their dependents. So it just really depends on where you live and what your rating is. I know there's quite a few more. So if Kyle, you want to chime in and kind of supplement some of the other things. I know there's talk about like the hunting and fishing license and all those as well.
You can get into depending on certain ratings, you can get into national parks for free, which is huge. Free camping at certain places, right? Which is huge for recreation and mental health. for just from the real estate aspect, if you have a 10% rating, a measly 10% rating, which I think everyone should be able to have, to be honest, it's an assumption, but at least worth exploring, you get your VA funding fee waived. And for people that have used the VA home loan, that could be like $20,000 up to $30,000 just for having a 10% rating. That goes away that you don't have to pay back for the rest of your life. Okay, that's huge. And again, certain states, like if your mortgage, if you have a high property tax rate, like in Texas or in Illinois, you can save $700 to $1,000 on your mortgage. That could be going into RIAs. That could be going into real estate investing. That could be going into a ton of different investment type things that you just don't even realize. If you are retired, like a lot of times people don't even know this. If you're retired and you don't have a 50% VA disability rating, you're not getting VA disability compensation. But if you're 50% or above, you can get your retirement pay and your VA disability pay. That's a real retirement now. That's a real retirement if you want. And then you could do whatever you want. You can, oh man, there's just so much opportunity there. Let's see. Dental care, if you're 100% total and permanent, right? And so dental care is expensive. And so those are some of the more tangible benefits, but then you have the intangible benefits of, I said before, like having no regrets, is that if you try. In the military, it wasn't okay not to try, and you never wouldn't want to try anyway. So what changes when you're out? Why would you not want to try? I think it's because of our conditioning that you only do things you're qualified to do. In the military, you can't handle a firearm unless you're qualified. You cannot stand that watch unless you're qualified. And if you do, you're a piece of crap. So because there's no qual process to get a VA disability rating, we feel as if we can't or shouldn't do it, I think. And that's a part of our conditioning. Okay. So there are resources out there. There is, you don't even have to pay people for it, right? There's free resources out there. You can Google search VSO, which stands for Veteran Service Officer, or Veteran Service Organization near me, right? You want to be the squeaky wheel that gets the grease because they're going to be busy too, because it's free to you. I mean, if you know anything about economics, you know that there's no such thing as a free lunch. So there is some cost. It's maybe not monetarily cost. But things to keep in mind is you want to just be persistent, be respectful. If they tell you to do something, do it, right? Be a good client of theirs. But the thing is, it's at least worth trying. The worst they can say is no. Yes, one could argue it may be a waste of time. But wouldn't you rather waste some time and know at the end of the day you fucking tried? Sorry, podcast.
It's all good.
At least try, okay? Because that, if anything that we do in the military is that we work hard. So at least work hard for yourself. How many things has a veteran done in their military career to make someone else look good? Why don't you work for yourself a little bit and make yourself look good? To me, I mean, that's a very logical next step. And but again, even though I say that now with authority, I still had to go through that maturation before I did it for myself, right? I took what I got, and you get what you get, and don't throw a fit, right? That's what I was taught. So I had to, again, break that conditioning and start just changing perspective. And one of the things I say is sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees. Well, you got to kind of have to climb the tree and look up and actually see the beauty of the forest and see the view. The view is fine from up here, right? But you have to elevate, you have to yank yourself out of your own perspective and see the whole thing, right? See the game that you're playing, so you can play chess, not checkers. And so in a process like this, you can learn how to advocate for yourself.
But I think that there's some healing that can happen in the validation of getting an accurate rating, because a lot of times I think that people in general just feel as though, life is supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be a shit show. It's supposed to be a grind every single day. So all of these negative things that you're experiencing and feeling are normal, and everyone goes through them. And while that is true to a certain extent, the things that our military service members have to go through specifically, they're going to have a harder time than the average person, because they've done things that the average person has not done. And so when that is being validated by the VA, then there's also a little bit of healing that can go on, that, okay, this is normal for us, right? I'm not the only person who goes through this. And I think that's almost, you can just take a deep breath and relax into it a little bit. Like, work towards that healing, work towards therapy, go and get the healthcare that that you need for your knees or your back or whatever that physical stuff is. Chiropractors are amazing. Go get treatment.
Yeah.
And there's that. And their families too, they benefit from having a whether it's a dad or a mom, but someone who, when the dad or the mom are working towards their own well-being and their own mental health, that kind of trickles down to everybody inside the four walls, right? We're all impacted by the people we live with. And so if veterans are working towards being the best version of themselves, they're going to benefit from that, and so are their families.
There's
That
also
is a great point.
and one more thing to that I'd like to add, because so especially when you talk about the mental health, like one of the real light bulb moments that I had with Sheena is that being a Navy nuke on a submarine, that we're conditioned that criticality is necessary. Like you have to bear true faith and allegiance to principles, not people, right? And to be right and be correct is the most important thing. So if I perceive something Sheena's doing is incorrect, my military conditioning says, and I think I would assume, only way I would assume is she thinks the same thing, that she would rather be right than wrong. So I'm critical of her over and over and over again, right? Proving to her how she's wrong, thinking that that's the good way to be. That if it works in the nuclear world, it works in I live on a submarine, for 4 months at a time. That's the only way I know how to behave, and that's how we behave with each other. Why is it not working with my wife, right? I'm like, why are you okay with being wrong? You're just wrong, right? And that's not the way a functional romantic relationship works. And so going through this, not only did I get the self-awareness that behavior is not good necessarily for a romantic relationship, that there's a difference.
For any relationship.
For any relationship, right? Have some tact, heaven forbid.
Right.
But she also learned that I wasn't doing it on fucking purpose. I'm not being an asshole on purpose. It's my conditioning. So then she was able to see, okay. So then there was a little bit more grace there, which invited me into a more healthy space as it is, right? Grace. She had grace for me. I can have grace for myself. I can have grace for her. And that grace, that big ball of grace, right, helped grease the skids to a more mentally healthy and just a healthier relationship overall. So that healing, it's through self-awareness and grace too. And that can really set families on a whole new trajectory in the intangible world, not just from the finances, but even stronger, more together, more self-aware, more gracious, huge intangible for that.
Yeah,
over.
Absolutely. And our veterans, a lot of times when they're going through our consultations with people on our team, they will say like, oh man, I never even thought of it that way. Or I didn't realize that I did this. And so sometimes just having a conversation with someone on our team can be life-changing, even if they never move forward with our process. Just having those hard conversations and being asked those questions can really cause some light bulb moments. We've seen that happen.
I totally agree.
Yeah. It's kind of cool
And I'll tell you
from this side when you can just hear in their voice that like pieces just came together, like something just clicked for them, and they're like, oh, okay, I got it.
Yep. I'll tell you from experience, the gap between where a soldier or a veteran might be and actually reaching out to ask some questions of you, Kyle, or anybody else that you have on your team, that gap is actually pretty large. I know that there's a huge demographic of soldiers and veterans that don't believe that they would even qualify for a VA compensation or a VA rating. I was one of those people myself, and I needed a strong hand, which consequently my wife has one, or she has two. I needed a strong hand to say, hey, shut up and actually do this for our family. That made a huge difference. And then getting connected to y'all, our family getting connected to your family has produced immeasurable differences in our lives. So that's a huge thing. So in terms of realizing that gap exists, right? There's a huge demographic of people out there that don't know, that like they might be looking at the VA and going, well, this huge monster is out there, and I don't feel like I have the mental capacity to fight that fight right now.
Yeah.
And you, with Atlas Benefit Consulting, you and Kyle and Tashina, you both have created a very streamlined and easy process to, like, you've greased the skids, much like you had just referenced, and made it very easy for soldiers to enter into the battle space, which is the VA. So can you walk us through a little bit of like what that process looks like? If we're able to accurately articulate how easy it is, then maybe we're encouraging some folks out there that might be listening to this episode, and it might come to a light bulb moment and they say, okay, now is the time where I need to reach out. So can you tell us about the process that y'all have, and also where they can find you, like how easy it is to find you guys and tap into the wealth of knowledge that is Atlas Benefit Consulting?
So, we do have a couple different processes. I'll start with the one that we started our company on, and that's our DBQ generation process. DBQ stands for Disability Benefits Questionnaire. They're a public-facing form. You can go to va.gov right now and look at them all. Okay, anyone can go look at these forms. It's what the VA uses. They hire doctors. They hire contracting companies, like in everything in the government. There's a contract, right? They contract companies to have doctors evaluate veterans for the merit based on their claim, and write up and fill out these what's called DBQ forms. And the VA uses those to make decisions on claims, whether they have merit or not, right? They're the ones that make those determinations. Okay, so the law changed in 2017 to allow civilian doctors or non-VA contracted doctors to do these evaluations, right? So that's the thing. And so we partnered with a medical company. We contract them to find, recruit, and train doctors that want to help veterans. Okay, they want to help veterans. They don't work for the VA. They have their own practices, or they work for different medical firms, and they want to give veterans a fair shake. Okay, and so basically what we do is we coordinate care for those doctors, for veterans to get in touch with those doctors, and we have a process for that. They got to be screened because we don't mess around with fraudulence, but we do help vets understand and identify what a flare-up is, what the case law is, and the court case precedents on what it means by pain and functional loss, right? It's not what you think. It's not what I think. It's not what, Jimmy thinks about disabilities. It's what the law says. And so a lot of this is education based, but we have a screening, assuming they have merit and they find value in what we can do. After the screening, then we use what's called mini questionnaires. We derive questions from those public facing DBQs and give vets the time to fully vet the severity, frequency, and duration of their disabilities, of their conditions, right? I hate the word disabilities. These are physical and mental manifestations of the sacrifices you have made for your country that you and your family members have to deal with on a yearly basis. If everyone thought about disabilities that way, there'd be a different attitude about this. So I think that word alone holds us back. Okay, so even that as a light bulb moment people might realize, hey, it might be worth going for. Okay. But so we have these questionnaires and we have feedback sessions. We kind of let folks, give them a safe place to vent, right? That, gosh, Anna told us a story the other day of, the guy was talking to her, first time talking to her, was telling her something he's never even told his wife of 30 years. Okay. Because they know that we're going to be able to use this to help them. Okay. So that's really powerful. In any case, after we get all the juice and organize all the true severity of this thing, we coordinate that appointment. The doctor then has to review medical records, have to review the questionnaires, and actually be seen by our doctor. So you have to be seen by our doctor, right? That's the thing, is we're legit. You have to be seen by our doctor. The doctor then evaluates that veteran, fills out the DBQs, signs their name. The veteran can then use those public-facing DBQs in accordance with the law, the Quicker Disabilities Delivery Act of 2017, to substantiate their claim to the VA. The vet's doing this all by themselves. Like we are not claims agents. We're not accredited agents or attorneys. We cannot represent anyone, which means we cannot do anything for anyone. We cannot act on their behalf, but we can help a vet help themselves, right? And so a lot of that's just through education and advocacy, self-advocacy training. A lot of it really is also communication training and giving people permission to fully express themselves without feeling fear or pride or guilt.
I just want to chime in on what he said on the education side of things is a lot of times, and we use this a lot, is you don't know what you don't know. And veterans will come to us, they'll go to their VA appointment and they think they have a certain, like, my back hurts. Okay, cool. Your back hurts. But that's not going to get you a rating. You really have to dive into the meat and potatoes of what's going on with your back on a daily level. You don't know what you don't know. And so we help connect those pieces. I don't want you to go into your appointment and just say my back hurts. I want you to go in and say my range of motion is reduced when I'm in a flare up and I can't do these tasks. Right? And all veterans and active duty military members, you know what those things are, but you don't necessarily know that you have to tell someone that specifically. And you do. And so in our mini questionnaires that Kyle referenced, is that's where we have you put down that information. And then the doctor will actually see that before your appointment and be able to use the exam that they perform and the mini questionnaire that you filled out to make sure that that DBQ is fully representative of you and your specific situation. They're very detailed. Because we help you make sure we're asking you the right questions so that you know which answers you need to provide.
That's something that's missing with a lot of these processes. The fact that one of the I would say more important aspects of what y'all have done with Atlas Benefit Consulting is you are very much tied to the VA, if not in their very hip pocket. So you have the latest and the greatest that's coming out, the changes. For example, the PACT Act that just came out. There's a specific window of time for soldiers to put in PACT Act claims, and there's all kinds of qualifications, if you will, for soldiers that can qualify for the PACT Act. But y'all are such a wealth of information, like we were talking about, and now as we're closing in on about the hour mark, I'd like to highlight, be specific.
Okay.
Where can soldiers find you? Do you, what information are you comfortable with sharing on this episode? Websites, email addresses, things of that nature, social media platforms, whatever it is. Because y'all are absolutely everywhere, but how do soldiers or veterans find y'all? Or even if there's a family member out there that knows, hey, I've got a nephew in my family that just refuses to reach out because of whatever reason there is, let's make it easy for everyone to find y'all. So whatever you're comfortable with sharing, let's put it out there. Let's make sure people can reach y'all.
Absolutely.
So our office line is,
go ahead.
Our office phone number is 833-421-0343. So if you call that number, they'll be able to answer very basic questions and also fill out a consult request for you, which will go into our system, and then a consultant would be assigned to you. So if you call that number, it's not necessarily you're getting to talk to someone about your situation at that phone call. It's just kind of setting you up to be able to have that conversation later on. Also on our website is thevetstrong.com. So that's vet like veteran. So Bravo Echo vetstrong.com. We have at the top right, I believe there's a scheduled consultation. If you click that, it will pull some basic information, your name, phone number, email. It will also ask if you have a disability rating, because we work with veterans who do have a disability rating or who are trying to establish a disability rating. So we want to know that in advance to make sure that you're getting connected to the right person on our team. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, and we have a YouTube channel with a couple of important videos in there regarding an intent to file, how to look at what your disability is on the VA's website, things like that. So those would be all the things I can think of. Am I missing anything, Kyle?
Instagram, I think we're on, and LinkedIn. We're also on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Yep.
So, yeah, it's pretty much all the social media channels. And we like to share some good information there. We have some blogs as well that we posted for those. You might want to like and follow them so you can keep in line, know when sales are happening, because we do sales throughout the year too. Really, we're really kind of everywhere. Pretty easy. And I'll even let my cell phone number go out there. 509-537-7608. So one of the things that we like to promote here is really transparency, and what I say is, don't take an opportunity away from me to even brag about what we do by not asking a question. Call, ask, I'll either know or I'll take a look up. I like questions, because then every question's an opportunity to influence or produce an answer or get better. If I don't know, I'm gonna have to go find out. So hard and tough questions are good.
That's awesome. I was going to say you're a brave man, but I get where you're coming from. And that speaks to how much y'all want to really help people. The fact that you can put all this information out there, even personal information, because you're willing to help people is a huge testament of just who you guys are, because values have value. And just knowing y'all
I like that.
There you go. That actually came from one of our mentors. We interviewed Tommy as the first episode of this podcast, and he was one of those guys that taught us a lot about real estate. Everybody listening to this episode can go back to episode 1. He was the very first guy that we interviewed. He's an Air Force veteran, has a VA rating, and he was one of those really knowledgeable guys. So he taught me that. So and it absolutely goes into what we're trying to accomplish here with Atlas Benefit Consulting. So very much tie in, but I don't want to be the one to specifically end the podcast episode. So I'd like to kind of open it up to y'all. What have we not covered, or what questions have we not asked? And what information do you just want to get out there? Like, I want to end this on a personal note so people listening to this episode can really understand who you are, if they haven't already had a chance to do that already. But I'd like to just leave it up to y'all to end out the episode as you see fit. So whatever else you want to share, if there is anything, if not, we can just close it out. But I want to give it to y'all to end it.
I want to go first, and then I'm sure Kyle will have some stuff to add.
Sure.
He's our talker. I think I just want to point out what I think makes Atlas so special is that we are still small enough to care about every single person who calls our office. Every single person. We, as a team, we really value the opportunity just to talk to veterans and to connect with them. And we talk about that amongst ourselves. Every week when we meet, there's stories that are shared, and not necessarily personal information, but that I was able to help this person, or this person came to me with this and I was able to give them this advice, because we want to help even if we're not making $1 off of it. We offer up education that we have. We can point you in the right direction towards resources. So yes, we are a business and money does help us pay the bills, but we also care about our veterans and our active duty members, and everyone who's worked with us could probably attest to that. And one of my very favorite things about listening in on phone calls, especially Kyle's, is when he has a client who wants to move forward with us, the last thing that he says to them is "welcome to the team." And I think that that's so important, because we really do look at it as a team effort. We feel a sense of responsibility to the people that we're helping. We celebrate with them. We cry with them. We have, randomly text each other on the middle of the weekends when things are going on. You're not just a number when you work with Atlas. You really are a teammate for the time that you are on our roster. So just keep that in mind. And Kyle, go ahead, take the floor.
That was awesome, Gina. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it was.
What I would like to leave the audience with is to challenge assumptions and ask better questions. When I say challenge assumptions is that, is your VA rating accurate? How do you know? If you haven't looked at the Chapter 38 book for the CFRs, you're making assumptions. Okay. Do I deserve this? Right. What assumptions are in that attitude, right? When you're playing the comparison game, what assumptions, if you say, I don't, Jimmy did way worse things than I did, and he's less rated than me, so I obviously don't deserve it. The assumptions there are obvious, but not to most. It's like the assumption here is that Jimmy's accurately rated, and that you know absolutely everything that Jimmy's disability means, and that you know what the CFRs say. Those are all potentially incorrect assumptions. So really all that matters is your scenario, your circumstances, your conditions compared to the law. And so if you have merit in accordance with the law, get an accurate rating, and then invite Jimmy on your level. Okay. That's what Battle Buddies do. But you have to start with the truth. And the truth is you compare to the law. Okay. So, and then asking yourself good questions, meaning open-ended questions, like how could, instead of saying, I don't deserve this, ask yourself, how could I deserve this? The things that bubble up in your subconscious are completely different the way you frame questions. Okay, so start asking yourself open-ended questions, not yes or no questions, because human beings are lazy and it's just easier to say no. It's less risk to say no. We just say no. We tell ourselves no, because in the military we're conditioned to sacrifice. We sacrifice ourselves, right? And so we have this notion that I'm not going to go fight for myself because it's my job to sacrifice, right? I'm just going to take that on because that's what I'm good at and that's what I'm trained to do. And the reality is it's more of a sacrifice if you think about it. If you think about even Stephen and Amber, she kind of had to get your perspective changed, that you're actually sacrificing for a family by doing this hard work for yourself and for our family. And that is a perspective shift. And that comes through good questions and challenging assumptions. We can help you do that. A lot of firms out there can help you do that. I think we have that boutique experience still where, you want to get with us before we get too big. So, but again, me as the CEO, I am acutely aware that it is possible to either die a hero or live long enough to become a villain. And I encourage my team, I encourage my clients, if I start becoming what I hate, call me out on it, right? It's a quick pivot back. It's better to have short corrections, 3 miles out instead of trying to make a big course correction before you hit the beach on a ship, right? It takes minor course corrections to steer something this big to continue to stay in the right direction. And so we believe in that accountability. And we have to always challenge assumptions and ask good questions. So, and invest in real estate, right? If you get a gift back pay, seriously consider investing in real estate. You guys probably know better than I do, but how many millionaires are real estate investors? What percentage? A stupid high percent, right?
Yep.
Can't mess with that fact. So invest in real estate.
I agree. But I would say to the audience, there's no way that Kyle and Tashina are ever going to get so big in their company that they're not going to care about every person that reaches out to them. I've sat down and had some time to really kind of figure out who these folks are, and they would not be on this episode or on this podcast if they didn't have the utmost values and the utmost respect for veterans and really be genuine in their desires to help people. So if I could say anything also to close this out, I highly encourage everyone to take a look at the show notes. We're going to link every social media platform, every phone number that they're comfortable with. Take a look at the show notes. You're going to be able to find Kyle and Tashina. And also, I know that everybody has to, in the sort of internet world, we got to trust but verify. So take a look at Atlas Benefit Consulting. Look at BVet Strong. Look at Kyle and Tashina on a personal level from what you can see on the internet, and really figure out who they are. Because once you speak to them and you start working with them, y'all are going to find out exactly why they're here on this episode. And you're going to find exactly everything that they shared on this episode is 100% true. And it's just scratching the surface on how awesome they are and how much they truly want to help people out. So please take a look at the show notes, reach out to us, reach out to me, reach out to Amber. We're always available. We can provide that sort. We can bridge the gap, if you will, on helping folks find Kyle and Tashina and get in touch with their company so they can help you all out. So I really encourage everyone to do that. And until then, we're like right at an hour. So we're going to close out the episode. Kyle and Tashina, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being on this episode.
Absolutely.
Making the Patriot Podcast part of a great veteran community that's out there. We love every one of y'all. I appreciate everyone being here. Thanks for listening. And until next time, we are out of here. So take care, y'all.
Thank you.